Just to tell you a little bit about the philosophy behind the revamp of the responsive. So we've chosen, and we're still progressing through them, so we've selected a number of the existing responsive resources covering all age groups. And for all of them, and I think Richard mentioned this morning the fact that within PowerLanguage we are evolving from your feedback, from your comments, but also evolving through the new technology that we can access. So to start with, if you've used any of the responsive resources, we'd used mainly PowerPoints because it was the most flexible way to present the resources and attach sound files to the resource. Again, going back to responsive resources generally, I think everybody's familiar with them, but if you remember, it was really a way for teachers to be able to contact us and say, I would like to, next term I'm going to be doing the dinosaurs with my P4. Can you help me with presenting some of these resources in French or in Spanish or in German? Okay. So for us, developing these resources, it was really trying to find a happy compromise between not diluting content too much, because if someone says we want to do the ancient Egypt with my P6, we don't want to just say, oh, here is an Egyptian and here is a pharaoh and here are the pyramids. So we wanted to make sure that our teachers had meaningful content, but with the compromise of obviously being able to present that in the target language. So it's always the balancing act for us in the resources that we prepare for you and for your teachers. So content, language, we've been talking about CLIL this morning. When we started 6 years ago, I don't think we were even aware of the acronym CLIL. For us, it was just a natural way to work to make sure that teachers had content, meaningful content, in order to introduce the language. So going back to the medium, so we had mainly PowerPoints, and again, for some of the PowerPoints, they were quite long PowerPoints because quite a bit of content and all the vocabulary there. Again, if you've looked at some of the responsive, we identified the key language, and then we provided a translation, the script and the translation, so quite lengthy PowerPoints. And some activities, but again, because the resources were requested by the teachers, at the time when we first started, we assumed that the teachers had some idea of how they would be presenting these resources. As we decided to revamp, and that also was triggered a bit by the work we did with early learning with FIA, where FIA decided that for nursery, we wanted to have really detailed teacher's notes. And we decided that we would apply that to all the responsive across the board, so from nursery to P7. So our new resources are now divided into, or revamped resources, I should say, because new resources, we automatically go into this format. We've cut the content into small chunks. So for instance, we're going to, I think we'll showcase the dinosaurs, but so dinosaurs, you have an introduction to the dinosaurs.
Should I just show that?
Yeah, okay.
So search engine, dino, there it
And we've
is.
got 2 packs of dinosaurs, nursery and primary.
So one of the big differences is
So it always starts. So the big difference is we actually number the resources. It always starts with the teacher's notes, and the teacher's notes state what is has been developed for each dossier. So if you click on teacher's notes, you will see that we state what the dossier contains. So if you look at that document, which is always the first document in your dossier, you'll know what it contains. There's a recap of each section, each animation, and then ideas on how to use these resources. Okay, lots of ideas. Again, probably a lot more than would be used in the class, but if someone wanted to make it a whole term or half a term project, there is a lot of things that can be done there. Sometimes, to help the teachers, I've actually also will look at activities afterwards, but sometimes I've lifted some of the activities element into the lesson plan, the teacher's notes, so that the teacher can also see what really in more detail what the activity is going to be about. So the resources from an original PowerPoint have been split into small chunks, and most of them have been made into animations. Okay, some of these animations. Okay, Richard, you want to
create
that one? So this one is an intro.
Les dinosaures. Introduction.
Vous connaissez l'origine du mot dinosaure? C'est un mot d'origine grecque. Il signifie un très grand lézard. Les dinosaures sont des reptiles terrestres.
There'll be a wee quiz after this, by the way.
Les premiers dinosaures sont très petits. Les dinosaures sont présents pendant 3 périodes. Le Trias, le Jurassique et le Crétacé. Les dinosaures apparaissent il y a environ 240 millions d'années, pendant le Trias. À cette époque, il y a seulement un continent, la Pangée. Le Jurassique commence il y a 200 millions d'années environ et finit il y a 145 millions d'années. À cette époque, la Terre est divisée en 2 continents, la Laurasie et Gondwana. Il y a beaucoup de dinosaures différents et c'est la période des dinosaures géants.
Okay, so I think that gives you an idea of what I was talking about, juggling with content and meaningful content, but trying to simplify the language. We obviously are very aware of using as many cognates as possible, but also trying to make links with languages, reflecting on other language and the links between. That's why, for instance, I don't shy away from giving the origin of the word dinosaur and the fact that there's a Greek. So there's a lot of material there that can be exploited through French in a simple way. activities, again, you'll see here, so for instance, for the first video, it's simply going to be watching the video again and then placing all the information within the correct era. And it can be done partially in French, partially in English. We don't have to, we can be very pragmatic about that. The language, the classroom teacher is not going to be able to run the entire set of activities in the target language. But that doesn't matter. You still have pupils who are manipulating the target language and playing with it. Now, in some of the animations, so two other things I wanted to say about the revamp. You'll see that because of the animations being organized in slides, it means that we are able to illustrate our points a lot more than we were doing through the PowerPoint. So on each slide, we try to find a meaningful illustration that will help your pupils understand, comprehend the meaning of the text. In the text, you probably have seen that we do it for all languages, so big use of cognates whenever we can to simplify. But when I say simplify, not babyfy. It's still correct French. We're not going to the point of making such simple sentences that they will automatically understand everything. It's still working on cognitive skills and engaging your pupils, wanting to know more about it, and spreading the message that it doesn't matter if you don't understand every single word. You will still be able to get enough out of the text.
Nadine, could we ask people to spend 2 or 3 minutes to reflect the pros and the cons of this approach? Not so much the new format, which I think it's all good as opposed to the PowerPoints, but we talk about the content-led approach. And I mean, how do you react? Some of you have been using these maybe in class, or maybe you've been teaching your teachers using these. But could we just reflect on these resources?
Yeah.
What are the pros and the cons of these resources?
I was just going to word of
Sorry.
French,
Yes.
not a word. I cannot order a beer, but that's about all of it. But I actually understood that because of the amount of support that was in
Okay.
the pictures and the way the text was put together.
That's interesting.
Even words that I genuinely didn't know.
Yeah.
I could make an educated guess at.
And the third skill you probably used was prior knowledge. You know about the word dinosaurs, all your knowledge in English that you had before. These 3 skills are important. Anything else? I mean, have a wee 2-minute chat each table. It's only a table of 2 now because people have had to fly to Lithuania, they've had to fly to...
Maybe I should just finish on the activities so the discussion can cover that as well. So one extra feature as well of the revamp is a more extensive range of activities. And maybe we can just show the document again. So when designing activities, again, we are aware of covering first and second level, and even in resources which have... Okay, going back on what the responsive resources were about. As I mentioned, it's originally a teacher who's contacted us and said, I want to do dinosaurs with my P6, for instance. But with some of the resources, we know that they could be used by younger pupils or older pupils. So in the revamp, although we still indicate, and that it's stated clearly at the start of the responsive resources that the age group mentioned reflects what the original request was about. So it means the teacher said, I would like dinosaurs for my P6, so 10 years old. But we now make sure that within that we have a range of activities which are going to encourage the use of the 4 skills, including reading and writing skills. Okay? So here you have things like working on transposing vocabulary, but whenever possible, we have things, as I said, linking the target language with English and making connections. So, for instance, in the dinosaurs, it was quite easy to do that because there were so many cognates, and also, so there's an activity trying to find the roots of words and finding an English word that could be connected to that. But we also have a lot of over to you activities, recycling. So we give sometimes models or templates through an animation and through a written template within the activity, and get your pupils to recycle that. We encourage them to record themselves and to produce animations themselves. So you'll find that across all the revamps that we've done. And as I said, even for resources which originally were designed for younger pupils, we've still added activities which encourage reading and a little bit of writing for some of them. So sometimes it might be just jumbled letters that you have to put back together for the younger learners. Last thing I want to say about animations is sometimes you'll see that you have two animations of the same on the same topic. For instance, dinosaurs, you have les dinosaures, qu'est-ce que c'est? There's a version with text and a version without text. Again, and this is mentioned in your teacher's notes, and we give ideas to teachers on how to use that. So if you want to work on listening comprehension, depending on your age group, you might not want to present the text to start with. So encourage your pupils to listen. There is a version without text. And then as you have presented that and done some activities of retrieving, for instance, in dinosaurs, there's an activity where you might just say, put your hand up if you hear a word, you know, the French word for dinosaur, or so simple things, but which encourage your pupils to focus on their listening skills, and then use the animation with text for a different type of activity. Okay, so sometimes you have the flexibility, but all these ideas are detailed within the teacher's notes.
Pros and cons then of these resources. Back.
So I really like that they are, although it's activities designed for them, for example, age 8, there's things from that dinosaurs, for example, that I could use with like, secondary learners, but just without, like, I could use the video, I could use it without support, do its listening tasks, exploit the transcript, do some sort of rewording of it, things like that. So it's, I feel like sometimes the age things can be quite off-putting, because like, should I use that on my seniors because they're 15 and it says 8, but it's still a valid.
Absolutely, which is why we put the plus after the 8, the Erasmus plus. But that's interesting, yes. In our mind, and that's what you said, Nadine, in our mind it really is, you can be used well into secondary schools as well.
Yeah, and again, I was thinking about that this morning when we were presented the project of older learners presenting to younger learners. It could very well be that your secondary learners go and present whatever results to primary school pupils.
Anything else? Do you like the idea of using content to lead the is that a good idea for primary and maybe secondary language teachers?
And hopefully have children who arrive in secondary school prepared to take risks, not shy about having language which is where you don't understand everything, and not asking you to translate everything. What does it mean? What does it mean? I think if we can, from primary, promote this sort of, yes, I can be surrounded by language. Yes, I understand this. Yes, I understand enough to complete an activity. Hopefully, that's going to be a plus in their language journey when they get to secondary school.
The children are surrounded by that because we would say in our family that they don't watch normal TV, it's all Netflix and the amount of language films and
Yes.
series. My son is watching Spanish and he prefers to watch it in PowerLanguage with the subtitles because it just it's more natural.
Yes.
Casa de Papel,
Yeah.
wonderful
Yeah.
in Espanol.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We're in that world, so it's just
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so that takes us to the secondary resources, which were created. So there they are, resources. Click. Well, responsive, not secondary. Click. Well, we'll use French, but they exist in French and in Spanish. So you click in French, and there they are, 6 sets of resources. So we're going to use some of them with you today. First of all, where do they come from? Laura and Falkirk Council contacted us a year ago now, Laura, wasn't it? Gosh, time flies, kind of. So it's a year in the making, just to say, it's been a lot of work there. And when we discussed, when we met, we thought, what do we want? We want resources and feed in if you want, Laura, absolutely, but we want resources which match the secondary curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
We want resources which will support the transition and including with the format used. Thea said that this morning, she used the same format, nursery format into P1, that was useful for the learners. So transition was an important part of this. The content, again, we're back to, this is led by the content, fair trade. Within fair trade, we're going to be able to say bonjour, je m'appelle, or in fact more than that, other stuff, but anyway, led by content. IDL was also part of what we thought we would do. Can we do some numeracy, maths? Could we get the biology teacher involved in this or not? The choice is there. Very flexible resources. That was another part of the brief. And I think the final thing was our obsession with, can we include the parents there or the family? So a bit of home learning there. Can you share the rules with your friends and your dog when you go home, or can you do this activity with your carer back at home? So these were.
They were the ones that we selected because we worked together about what was common between
Yes.
the 8 secondary schools.
Yes.
And they were the ones that we kind of decided would work best. So the sum for S1, S2, S3 teaching.
Yes,
We had
that was the other thing, yeah. Broad general education was what we wanted. That was a dialogue between all the schools and all of us at PowerLanguage, all secondary schools in Falkirk Council and all of us at PowerLanguage.
I was just going to say that you also had a brief on some grammatical structures that you wanted to include in each of the dossiers.
And the recycling of grammatical structures, so when we're introducing the past tense, it's then all the way through the other ones as well.
Yes.
That was kind of important.
We also looked a bit at what you'd be expected to do when you get to sort of exam certification levels, so things like National 4 and National 5, like what sort of language that you expect to use for that, so you can kind of build it in at a range, so that's kind of
Absolutely.
long-term,
yeah.
Absolutely. So in terms of the grammatical input was when would we start le passé composé, the past tense, but we would try to do that maybe with fair trade, in S2, blah, blah, blah. So these were kind of communication and meetings that we had at the start and all along really to make sure that what we would develop would suit the needs of secondary teachers and the pupils and bring in some of the primary methodology that we've been using with the responsive resources, for example, into the secondary sector. So that's the starting point. Is that clear? Should we start with which one do you want to? The health and well-being, or do we?
Yeah, well, all about me. I mean,
that's a
again,
transition folder.
It's a transition folder, and in that folder, so in the set of resources, we actually recycle some of the resources we had used in PLS primary. Again, just as Richard was saying, so that they were familiar with the format and some of the resources. but how to recycle that and go beyond it with some things that they might have seen before. So for instance, I have a pet presenting a pet, but then it's going beyond that, researching another pet, presenting an imaginary pet, but it's things that they have covered in primary school. So they're familiar with the context of people introducing themselves or themselves introducing themselves, etc.
So we've tried to use the format that we use for the online courses because the feedback is so good. So again, hopefully very simple navigation. You saw I clicked on All About Me, and these are all the resources linked to that P7 S1 transition project. First one you click, and you get your teacher's notes, which you can download. Okay. If you click on number 2, there's a progression there. Okay. Oh, Mary Stewart. We've used, as Nadine said, we had used Mary Stewart, but we've actually revamped her as well.
Exactly. So we try to change the type of animations that we used. So here we have a range of animations that you find.
Talking, listening, reading, and writing from the start, and you'll see when we reach to S3. I mean, we're talking challenging activities. So that's. I could just show you this one maybe. I can do this if I want to, by the way, just to...
Yeah.
Kids love this, teachers after a while, not so much. Recycle prior knowledge, recycle what you know about Harry Potter already, recycle... and
yes,
so on.
Again, what you said, Richard, about having put Harry Potter in there. So literacy element is in each dossier there is some research to do, applying your research, and part of this dossier, for instance, is researching a famous literary duo, and then presenting as they're presenting here, Ron and Ginny and Harry talking about each other. Find another duo and then prepare your own resources around that. But each dossier has an extensive research and apply section.
Okay, so again, working with the Falkirk team, what All About Me, okay, but what would you do in S1? This was P7, S1, well, you would introduce these. Okay, so we've created resources using maybe Harry Potter as a background or other types, or me, All About Me as a background, to introduce school subjects, to introduce sports and hobbies. So it is linked, always linked to the actual content of your curriculum, what you would do in broad general education, with animations, with some maybe primary, what we've been using in terms of formats for primary schools. Okay. We'll ask you to talk about the feed, because you've used some of those, but did you use this one?
Just using that one just now, actually, and when they came up, they're very confident saying I all the time, but this has really extended it to use in the third person.
Okay.
And even though they did actually know it, so it's just really, it's recycling it, but making sure they're secure in the third person. With
progression, therefore. Yeah. That's your progression from I to he, she.
Yeah, but they're getting that. No, they've really enjoyed the Harry Potter one.
Okay, that's good.
So you have done that already, yeah, because I suppose it's the start of this one.
Yeah,
yes.
Finished that one almost now.
Gosh, that's wonderful.
From the second dossier, so All About Me is recycling a lot of resources, and they're all made up resources, made up especially animations made up by us to fit the topic. From Fair Trade onwards, we start including authentic resources, text and videos, particularly for the last two dossiers. And the last dossier is pretty much 100% based on authentic documents. So there is a progression, obviously, as we go from S1 to S2 to S3.
Yeah. Okay, should we have a look at health and well-being, or?
Or Yep.
Which one do you want to?
Health and well-being is fine.
Yeah.
They're all good. So we start, again, health and well-being, it starts with, there's a lot, we're trying to apply some of the clear methodology, so there's a lot of, instead of starting with giving things, new things to your learners, it's starting with what they know and reflecting on what they know. So for instance, here we talk about lunch, so reflecting on what they eat. There's an animation with two teenagers talking about what they've had for lunch and then comparing what they had, and if one had eaten things healthier lunch than the other. And from that, reflecting on what, they work in small groups, talk about what they had for lunch, and then we start making categories of what they eat, so healthy food, non-healthy food, and then we go into the 7 food groups, and then they go back to what they've done in the first section, that is, the 2 teenagers who presented what they had for lunch. Can you put that into the 7 food groups so that you have scaffolding all along the resources, and you as the teacher can have a formative assessment of what's going on as you go along, so you don't go bang into the new stuff. So we've tried to include steps for each activity. There's a reflection, and then you can build that on to the next activity, where hopefully by the end of it, you know that all the bits of Lego are there. But we've tried to help the teacher and the learners at the same time, and with the scaffolding.
Do you want me to show this one, or should we go to Paris and the teenagers talking as well?
Yeah, we've used that one.
Which one?
This is coming later in our.
Okay, well, tell us then. Yeah, in fact,
the fair trade and Paris are the ones we've used most of all. Okay. We're about to use the rest of them.
Should I show Paris just now?
Yeah.
Yes, is that? Or fair trade? I mean, which one?
So quizzes, before we start introducing Paris, we actually have a quiz to see what they know about Paris.
Yeah, that was good. I like that one.
Should we play that?
Yeah.
So this is the start of Paris. There's one called Madrid for Spanish, obviously. Did I switch?
Paris.
Switch off the sound, yes.
Paris, c'est la capitale de la France, bien sûr. Mais que savez-vous sur Paris?
Male, female voices, teenagers,
Testez vos connaissances.
See how much you know about Paris, les amis. Pressure's on.
En groupe de 2, répondez aux 10 questions.
We should have done the banana one actually, Laura.
Bonne chance.
You know, remember that one we did in Aberdeenshire? Yeah. Because it's not so
La ville de Paris
Levez la main.
est située sur quel fleuve?
Well, you can talk to your... Bon, levez la main. La Seine, comment ça s'écrit?
La Loire, la Seine,
Okay, maybe a Belgian friend might know the answer.
Avant Paris, il y avait une ville appelée Lutetia, fondée par...
Not so easy. You can talk to the person next to you.
Les Vikings, les Romains,
Of course, we don't give the answer on that video. The answers come later. We'll do the first 3. What I like is nobody questioned, do I understand this?
Le surnom de Paris, c'est... La ville lumière, la ville mode.
Ok, quelle était la première question? What was it?
La rivière.
La rivière. Comment s'appelle le fleuve qui traverse Paris? La Seine. Où se jette la Seine, Élise? Le Havre. Élise comes from Le Havre. Or near Le Havre. So Le Havre, Shona, elle sait. Shona est une spécialiste de la Loire. Saint-Chamond.
Normandie.
Normandie.
D'accord.
Ok.
C'est bien. alors.
La Seine passe à Paris et se jette en Normandie au Havre. Question numéro 2, Daniel, c'était quoi la question numéro 2? Qui a fondé Paris? Deux possibilités. Les Vikings, les Romains. Qui a fondé Paris? Les Romains, peut-être, nouvelle. Qui a pillé et envahi? Question numéro 3. That's a funny word that we use there. What was the third question in English? What was the surname? Do you think that's what it was? Though it looked like a surname. So surname, what? It doesn't mean surname. So Paris hasn't got a surname. What do you think it means? Nickname. Nickname. Surnom. Nickname. Plus 2 pour Fontaine. They've done this for the learners already. Déjà, what does that mean for 4 points? Le surnom, nickname. Quel est le surnom de Paris? Ok, la ville lumière. La ville mode, c'est Saint-Étienne. Non, Lyon. Lyon, c'est la banlieue de Saint-Étienne. Et Saint-Chamond, c'est le centre du monde. Le cœur de la planète. Ok. Could we show one more, maybe?
Yeah.
That you may want to choose.
Bananas, yeah, because that's quite difficult. You would think in S1, but cooked absolutely no bother, which we were really.
That's what's interesting is you've actually used them, and it's a bit like what you said. I don't speak a lot of French, but actually, I understand most of it. I understood most of it. So, fair trade? Oops. So that's the first time you see this new format as well.
Yes.
And was that easy to?
Yeah.
So, which one was it?
Bananas.
This one? Et puis l'issue de la banane. Do we just do the quiz straight away?
Yeah.
Like from the training session the other day, and I said, "Oh, this makes a nice read," and then I thought, pun, and I started to no pun intended there, but then I thought I'll change it. Makes a nice read. Okay, qui veut gagner 1 million de bananes? Oh, an online course. I think we have a winner, by the way, Elise. Not for the bananas, but for the tweet. Ok, vrai ou faux? Question numéro 1, Nadine.
La banane est un fruit.
Vrai ou faux? Faux, vrai. Ok, levez la main, vrai. Suddenly everybody's thinking, I don't know. 3 ou 4. Levez la main, faux. Well, what is it if it's not un fruit then? Vrai. I knew, Sylvia, I was going to say, I knew this. You've done it, you know. Okay. Pour 100 bananes. Non, vas-y.
Un bananier, c'est un arbre.
Vrai ou faux? Discussion. Levez la main, vrai. Baissez la main. Levez la main, faux. You can't even remember. C'est une herbe géante. Oh, you mixed up your banana from your arbre. Ok.
Les fleurs de bananier se transforment en régime de banane.
You're allowed to say je ne sais pas, no cheating. You're allowed to say je ne sais pas. Vrai?
Yeah.
2, 3, oh, suddenly, it's been like the video that you showed us. It takes one. 4? Je ne sais pas? Okay. The word régime is used a lot in French, but not so much in English, funnily enough. A régime de banane, many people would know what it is in French-speaking countries. Anyway, and so on, you get the idea. Okay, that's the quiz. And this is where, in a way, there's no compromise, you were saying, between the content. This is serious content.
Yes.
This is, you know, you're learning French, okay, but actually you're learning about les bananes, le fair trade, of course, that's the main theme. And you think, even as a teacher, you might not know the answer unless you watch the video.
And again, just little things like making the choice of putting the sentence in the plural. We could have had la fleur de banane se transforme. Here the idea is les fleurs de banane se transforment. Hey, hang on, we don't pronounce the ENT in plural in French.
Yeah.
So we've tried to include little tricks like that to help you with noticing as often as possible that there are some letters which are not pronounced in French.
And I think secondary colleagues, you recognize the themes, employability, Paris, Madrid, fair trade. These are themes you'll be familiar with in your school.
Are you going to do any more? My secondary quite liking and asking if there's going to be any more.
Well, more than 6. That's already full. That's S1, S2, S3. Remember we said we're not doing secondary at all, even a few years.
When you start, that's
Well,
make it good.
first of all, I think it'd be fair to say use these, and it's great. I know you've used already 2 or 3 big dossiers because you started before the summer. Use them, and we need feedback too. This is, in a way, kind of new territory for us. Not so much the secondary, but they're quite ambitious ones as well. They take 8 weeks, probably, potentially, to do one dossier. Okay, so maybe is my answer. But feedback, of course, is what we want and we need, and this is for secondary resources before primary resources. All the changes, all the things we've been able to do over the years, we've been able to do thanks to you or to the feedback we've been getting. And when we don't get feedback, then we can't change anything. Okay? And all the responsive resources which we have been developing, we've developed because you've asked for them. Otherwise, there will be 0. We've said this over the years. There will be 0 in the responsive section. At the moment, we have how many French even dossiers for responsive? Do we know?
I've stopped counting.
180. Loads.